It's time to look at the defensive side of the football as it pertains to the 2024 NFL Draft. Matt Williamson's rankings for defensive linemen, edge rushers, defensive tackles, and some sleepers both on the edge and the interior for this draft class. Coming at you right now on Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks to everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We appreciate all of the everydayers out there, and we appreciate it when you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Pause it if you have to, if you're watching this currently on YouTube. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. D lineman, Matt. Let's go with the biggins. Let's start inside with the interior defensive linemen in this class, and really a small group. We're seeing wide receivers and defensive tackles for some reason shrink. And offensive linemen aren't getting smaller, Matt. Like this is an interesting concept, and the NFL has to use what college football gives them as far as parts and players to build their rosters. And it's fascinating to see how teams will view this class of interior defensive linemen, because there's some good ones, but we don't have that guy who's 310 pounds, 6'4", that everybody knows is going to be a first rounder all day long.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the Quinnen Williams or Jeffrey Simmons. I know he was injured, so he slipped a little bit. But the guy that just can line him up anywhere and just win with power and speed. I don't see a special player in this group. And originally, I was really down on the interior D linemen. And it depends what you're after. I mean, like the two Texas guys couldn't be any more different, for example. But there are some day two guys I'm a little more intrigued with, and some sleeper types that maybe work out with a little more polish. But overall, I'm not blown away by this group, to be honest with you.
Who's your number one? Who's the first tackle off the board, and where do you see him going on April 23rd, 25th? What day is the NFL draft, by the way? I know we're in April now. Congratulations. We made it to April. We're in draft month officially, by the way.
So Byron Murphy II from Texas is very chalky for this honor, and he is my one. But I'll be honest, I think Jerzan Newton from Illinois is not being talked about nearly enough. I assume it's because he didn't work out. It's kind of the Cooper DeJean curse right now from the media. Just there's nothing new from this guy since he played football last, but they're absolutely neck and neck for me. And I think Murphy's a little more powerful. Even though they had Sweat, he was more of the nose and Sweat was more of the three technique. He's got really violent hands. He's a great, great athlete. Really stays square to the line of scrimmage. Love the way he chases the ball. But if you're looking for like Geno Atkins, I mean, just pure three technique, get up the field, wins with shock from his hands and his get off, I think Newton's the better player if that's exactly what you're after. I don't think he's as well-rounded, though.
I was really pleasantly surprised when I watched Jerzan, aka Johnny Newton, out of Illinois and put on his tape. It was like, oh, why is nobody talking about this guy? 6'2", 304 pounds, that burst, that get off. He's active with his hands, nonstop with his hands. When he wins quickly, but if he doesn't win quickly, that's where you kind of see some length problems and, kind of shorter arms, and you can see guys kind of control him if he doesn't win with that initial rush and those initial quicks. But he's so good with those initial quicks, he wrecks a lot of plays just instantly. So, and I think he's a first round guy. Byron Murphy is surprising because he looks bigger than what he weighed in. I mean, he's smaller than Jerzan Newton. He was 6 feet and a half inch, 297 pounds. I mean, that's really undersized traditionally, Matt, for a first round defensive tackle.
You're right. And I would have thought Murphy was the bigger player just watching him on tape, because Newton is so explosive, such a gap shooter, And Murphy is more powerful at the point, staying square, things like that. So that worries me a little bit. I mean, he's under 6'1", he's under 300 pounds.
Good player, though. And so it'll be interesting to see what. And dude, can you believe? I don't know if we talked about this, but Aaron Donald retiring, and he's been sort of the, you hope you get an interior undersized guy that's as much of a monster as Aaron Donald is. And we're talking about size for these guys. Aaron Donald said he played at 260 pounds. Wow. That's crazy. Like he said, anywhere from 255 to 265 pounds. That's insane, man.
That is insane. I didn't know that at all. That is mind-boggling.
Yeah, after he retired, he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm 265 pounds, guys. I'm not.
He is
285."
I used to see him work out at Pitt all the time, and he did not look like a 300-pound guy. But I mean, he's all muscles on muscles on muscles, though. There's no fat on that body. All
right, Byron Murphy, the second out of University of Texas, number 1. Jerzon Newton out of Illinois, number 2 on your board, Matt, for interior defensive lineman. Who's number 3 for you? And is it Byron Murphy's teammate at Texas?
No, he's 4, though. I've sweated 4. I've been working on this name. Rook Aurora. I think I may have thrown an extra roar in there. I'm not sure.
Yeah. maybe he'll be a Detroit Lion with all that roar in his name. It's Aurora. Is nice. What it is. Yeah, Rook Aurora. So fantastic name, fantastic prospect as well.
I like him a lot. I think he's a bit of a projection. I mean, he's a very long-limbed, athletic guy. He's kind of getting by on his gifts right now. He needs to work on technique. Needs a good D-line coach to really get the most out of him. Like if he went to the Niners, I'm sure they'd get a ton out of him. Things like that. He can go up and down the line of scrimmage. He's one of the few guys here, though, that has height and length.
Height, length, explosion, could be an outside in sort of a player, moldable piece of clay that a defensive line coach no doubt is going to like. And I'm sure he's off the board in the first 2 rounds, maybe top 50 picks is where I'm thinking Rook Aurora out of Clemson will go. And then you got T'Vondre Sweat, the big old 366-pounder out of Texas at 4.
Yeah, and I don't have a lot to add. I mean, does his weight scare me? Without question. I mean, especially if he gets to the league and he starts getting 380. You know what I mean? If you could tell me he was going to play around 350, he might even be 1 on this list. I mean, he is more than just a Williams, Wald, Saragusa, stick him in the middle of the defense and eat blocks guys. He'll drive guys back into the pocket in the pass game. But I don't know the durability, not the durability, the stamina stuff. And it scares me a little bit. And some of it is kind of just holding Jordan Davis against him a little bit. Jordan Davis hasn't impacted the league. And how many snaps are you going to get out of him?
That's the thing. How high can you draft a player that might play 45% of the snaps? Maybe at most. He's not going to be a full-time player. Probably not going to have the ability to be a full-time player, even if he had a full-time skill set when you're 366 pounds, 6'4.5". But and obviously his workout numbers aren't going to be great at that size, but for his size, he moves really well too. So if you sort of handicap it for guys who are 350 plus, he's one of the best athletes out there, right? So that's the thing. And we talked about how small some of these defensive linemen are. It's like, can we get a guy between 294 and 360? You know what I mean? So that's where we're at with this defensive tackle class right now. If you need a true nose, if you want to employ that position, T'Vondre Sweat's your guy. He's not going to go in round 1 just because of I don't think the need is out there in the league, but a really good player. And and obviously he's that archetype if you're looking for that type of guy sometime on day 2.
Yes, I think he's probably a 2nd-round pick, but you can see why they would fall too. I mean, all these teams have needs, and if they look at it like, hey, I can only get 15 to 18 snaps out of this guy, that's round 3.
We'll finish up the top 5 of Matt Williamson's defensive tackle rankings for the 2024 draft next, and some interior sleepers as well. And then we'll move on to defensive ends. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel. The sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel's making it even more exciting to get in on all of the action. I love April. It's my favorite month of the year, April and October, because of how much is going on in the sports world, along with the weather that we're getting. Beautiful sunshine out here where I'm at on the West Coast, and you've got Final Four of the tournament. You've got opening day baseball. You've got NBA, NHL getting ready for the playoffs, and, of course, the NFL draft. And you can bet on all of it at FanDuel, and right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on the tourney, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, and so much more. Love the draft props at FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a big win at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Byron Murphy out of Texas, D-tackle 1 for Matt Williamson. Johnny Newton, number 2. Ruka Roro out of Clemson is 3. Tavondre Sweat from Texas is DT 4. Who's number 5 for you, Matt, to finish up our defensive tackle interior top 5?
This dude's super interesting. That's Braden Fiske from Florida State. I mean, my first sentence on him is he is just all energy, and his athletic testing was awesome. He's short-armed, and there's times where double teams just swallow him up. But you don't have to know anything about football to this guy to stand out. He is chasing things down all over the field. He's the Energizer Bunny. I mean, any defense you would include him in, he would bring a spark right away. He makes plays. He went from Western Michigan to the Florida State and didn't lose a step. I don't think he's for everybody, but man, he's exciting.
I don't think he's for me. He was the
I don't think he's for me either. Yeah.
I put on Johnny Newton and I was pleasantly surprised. I put on Braden Fiske and I was unpleasantly disappointed. I've seen, first round hype for him after the combine with how well he worked out, and the straight line speed is great. I love the motor. He is so active.
Yeah.
But he just gets swallowed up in the run game. And he had the shortest arms, 31 inches of any defensive lineman in the entire combine. So at 294 pounds, 6'4" is a decent height there. He looks smaller than that to me. I was surprised when I saw, 6'3" and 5'8" or whatever. I thought he was going to be someone like 6'1", 6'2", because of how small he plays. You can't move him to edge either because of his lack of arm length. And so I don't really know what you do with him because he's a rotational player for me. And that's someone I'm not going to take in the first round and probably the first couple of rounds. But as an interior rusher and how active he is and his energy and his motor is awesome. So I like him there. I just don't like him where he's being projected right now in the NFL draft.
He's not for me either, but I respect what he does. I mean, if I was a big looping and stunning team and rotational team, that would be a little more exciting to me, but I don't want him out there every snap taking on the Ravens. You know what I mean?
Right. Like if he stayed at Western Michigan and you're talking about, here's this day 3 gem that we like, and maybe we'll put him on a weight program, get him a little stronger, and you're going to develop him and he's going to be a rotational guy, then I'm all about it. But if you're telling me you got to draft him in the top 50, I'm out on Braden Fiske.
Me too.
I love your sleeper, though, because this is the guy that I love with the same archetype that you can get around later or 2 rounds later. I'm seeing Mekhi Wingo going on day 3 of the draft, and he's every bit as disruptive as someone like Braden Fiske. 6 feet, 284. Again, another undersized player, but I'm surprised there's not more love out there from LSU's Mekhi Wingo.
Yeah, again, he's not for every scheme. I mean, he's not going to old school Steeler 2 gap for you, but nobody does that stuff anymore. I mean, he's an upfield guy. I wonder how many snaps he could handle at his size. But even if he's sort of a pass rush specialist, rotational guy on waves, and a lot of these teams are using more and more defensive linemen, which I fully condone, I think he could help quickly.
And I wonder if teams will be in the first round and say, man, we could draft Byron Murphy right now. We could draft Johnny Newton right now. But why don't we just wait? Because then we could get Fiske later. We could get Wingo later, and we can get a position now that doesn't have some depth with, similar style of player later on in the draft. So I wonder if these D tackles might slip a little bit.
Yep. And we don't have to get too deep into it because we're going to talk edge here a little bit too, but the Big Ten rivals, the Michael Hall from Ohio State, Chris Jenkins from Michigan, I think they're probably day 2 guys as well, that they do some good things too.
Yeah, Chris Jenkins, he was supposed to be one of the Feldman freaks, right? And at the combine, he kind of wasn't as freaky, but you do like what you see on tape there, and he's an interesting one for me that I do like on day 2, and I'd probably actually put him above Fiske in my rankings.
I think it depended on scheme for me, but I was trying to be as generic as possible. But yeah, I prefer Jenkins, I think, to Fiske for the Steelers, for big power teams,
More powerfully explosive, yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't look like an elite athlete on tape, though. Good, but not an elite athlete.
Let's talk edge. Yeah. Defensive ends, outside backers, depending on your particular scheme. There's kind of a size and shape for you in this draft. Again, might not have a guy go in the top 10, but there's some depth here and some good football players toward the middle end of round 1 and into day 2. Who do you got as your number 1 edge player on the board this year, Matt?
So to pull back the curtain, I turned this one in quite a while ago, and we're doing round 2 on these triple take series for Steelers.com, where had more time to digest it, dig a little bit deeper. And originally I kind of just fell like a sheep to Dallas Turner being 1, Jared Verse being 2. But the more I watch, Laiatu from UCLA is just a better football player than all these guys. I mean, like, no one takes over a college game like him. And I understand, trust me, scouting is more than just, do you whip the guy in front of you? I mean, what's the projection? What are your measurables? And of course, he had a neck injury, which I can't comment on. Who knows? But he just wins over and over and over.
It's hard because, we're not doctors and we don't have those medical reports. He had that medical, a neck surgery that players have come back from. And, he thought his career might be over, kind of medical red shirt type of thing, came back and turns out he's fine. And if teams check that box, then I don't see why he can't be the top defensive end and defensive lineman really in this draft off the board, because he is nice size, 6'5", 259. He worked out really well, does not have long arms, which physically is the one thing I would worry about with what his ceiling maybe is as an NFL rusher, but he uses his arms and his hands so well, better than anybody in this class off the edge. So I like you coming back to him and trusting the tape, Matt, on Laiatu Latu out of UCLA and moving him back up to your edge 1 in this class. I don't know where he's going to go. The medicals will play a big part. If he's there late in round 1, it's medicals because the tape is awesome.
Yeah, and you said NFL rusher. Like, he rushes the passer like an NFL edge guy with a variety of moves and great hand fighting and setting up his defenders. I mean, the jump to college to pros is tough at all positions, but a lot of these edge guys just win because they're bigger, stronger, faster than the guys trying to block them.
And the guy that's faster than everybody is Dallas Turner out of Alabama. So you have him as your number 2 guy, 6'3", 247 pounds. He's got arm length. He's got extreme explosion. He's got production at Alabama. Obviously, if he's at Bama, he's a big time dude. A lot to like there. But when you put on the tape, as far as pass rush plan, that body lean, that bend around the corner, there's some work to do with Dallas Turner, as much of a freak athlete as he is.
I think so too. I mean, the splash stuff is great. The consistency is so. I mean, I keep referencing the Steelers as I always do, but like back in the day, old school 3-4, Joey Porter off the edge, stand up 2-point stance, well off the ball, is what he is to me. Maybe even dropping coverage, but nobody plays like that anymore, down after down. He's a little light. There's a lot to work with there, but he's a little more finessey than I like, and certainly a lot more finessey than Verse or Laiatu.
Some boomer bust there for Dallas Turner, but I love the athlete. And if you play a odd front, I think you're going to be pretty high still on Dallas Turner, even though there's some work to do with his pass rush technique in the NFL. Jared Verse, if it wasn't for how well Dallas Turner worked out and guys like Chop Robinson, we'll see if he shows up on your list. Jared Verse had some great workouts too. Powerful too. He'll put an offensive tackle on his butt as a bull rusher, even though he's only 254 pounds, man.
To me, you have to be able to win with power as a prospect, or quickly translate that to the NFL. That's not going to be a problem with him at all. I think he runs through people consistently, really powerful hands, good first step. As you mentioned, a good tester. But I think he's a little, he doesn't bend the edge like a Turner can, like get the shoulder super low. He's not Gumby. I mean, he's a little on the stiffer side. And this sounds like a detriment. I don't mean it to be, but he's like a really high-end number 2 edge rusher to me. I mean, if you have a star on the other side, I could see this guy being Alex Highsmith, like somebody like that, that's a Robin.
Yeah, to me, it's a really easy scouting report. He's going to be a really good NFL player, little tight-hipped, brings speed to power, 6'4", 254 pounds. If you like that scouting report, you're going to like Jared Verse a lot, right? And so I think this is one that it's a clean, easy scouting report. What he's going to be, it's easy to envision. Your number 3 defensive end. So we got Dallas Turner. No, we got Latu.
Latu's 1, yeah.
With a bullet up to the 1 spot. Dallas Turner 2. Jared Verse 3. The rest of Matt Williamson's top 5. And sleeper at the defensive end / edge / outside linebacker position in the 2024 NFL draft next. The next segment of Peacock and Williamson is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. And it happens to all of us. It's happened to me currently with some things going on in my family, and, health starts to rear its ugly head at times. And you start to realize, man, time, what would I do if I had more time? So many of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. And the question becomes, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your specific schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched to a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Looking at the edge rushers in this draft class, we're on to number 4 in Williamson's top 5. Who comes in after Latu, Turner, and Verse on your list, man?
This is a weird one, but it's Darius Robinson. I mean, he's 6'5", 285 with a great body, awesome long arms. I mean, ripped up dude. Some call him a defensive tackle, but he doesn't really play like a traditional defensive tackle. Truthfully, I think he's a 3-4 defensive end, and people don't play that way all that much anymore. Can move up and down the line, but he was much more of an edge at Missouri this past year than an inside guy. Plays hard. I mean, he's got big, heavy hands, but not traditional,
I love it. Going back through the tape, Johnny Newton and Darius Robinson on the interior and on the edge were the two guys that surprised me the most, that I liked a lot. I loved their tape. And he only ran a 4.95 40 at the combine. He played D tackle early in his career, moved out to edge when some guys graduated there at Missouri and had a really awesome season. His best pass rush effort, 6'5", 285 pounds, super long arms, super big, strong hands, and he controls defensive linemen. And I love seeing that. He's a grown man out there, and some of these guys are undersized and trying to run around D tackles and win clean and get these clean sacks. Darius Robinson's not worried about that. He wants to control you with his hands and then disengage from there, make plays against the run, make plays against the pass. He'll swim you. He was unblockable at the Senior Bowl. I love Darius Robinson. The workout numbers might not be great. Maybe he could lose contain against some of these really fast quarterbacks. That might be difficult at times, but he's going to set the edge versus the run. He can give you some pass rush, and he can move inside and rush as well. But a big defensive end, I agree. 5 tech, if you want that style of player, Darius Robinson's your guy in this draft.
Yeah, and he's violent. I mean, he shows up.
And then unrelated, Chop Robinson is your number 5 edge rusher. Completely different guy. Although at 6'3", 254 pounds, ran 4.52 at the combine, was it?
It was right in that neighborhood, and he shows it. I mean, his get off is awesome. He's a great athlete. He is a bender. He has short arms, which is kind of strange for his playing personality. He's much more finesse to me. I mean, I think he doesn't win with power. His production hasn't been great, but that's somewhat of a Penn State thing for whatever reason. It seems like Michigan guys and Penn State guys on D lines don't produce heavily all that much. It's just kind of a weird theory of mine. I like him. I mean, I worry that he's Yannick Ngakoue and he'll end up on 10 teams in 10 years, just bouncing around the league as an edge only, can't play early down guy.
I don't know how he wasn't more productive. And I think that
right.
Obviously, if you draft him in the first round, you believe he's going to be a much more productive just from a sack production, stats standpoint than he was in college. I actually like, for his size, and you're right, the first thing is his get off, his explosion off the ball. He wins quickly when he does win. He gets after it as a edge setter and run defender too, despite being 254 pounds. He's willing to do it. He's just not the biggest guy, and he'll wreck some plays just like shooting a gap and fiercely getting in there and mixing it up. So he's not a finesse guy necessarily. And I think maybe one of the things that will work for him in his favor in the NFL is having the ability to not play the run on the way to the quarterback, which is, I think, what they asked him to do at Penn State. He'll have the ability to, especially if he's lined up wide and just can go get after the quarterback. I think that'll help him. So NFL schemes might benefit him as well. But work to do on technique to make sure you get home and get after the quarterback. But a player I like, and I would absolutely take him at the end of round 1.
And you basically said this without saying it, but he kind of scares me as a finisher because he wins a fair amount, but then where are the sacks?
How can you be that? We're talking what, 4 sacks or something? Like
it's right in that neighborhood.
He should roll out of bed even if he has no technique with his get off and his explosion, and in the college game be able to get double-digit sacks. So
and I need to double check this, but I think 2 or 3 of those 4 came like the first week of the year against Little Sisters of the Poor.
Right. All right, that's the top 5 edge rushers in this class. Who just missed for you? Who are your favorite sleepers in this 2024 edge class?
I think he's probably going to go on day 2, but Muhammad Kamara from Colorado State had a phenomenal combine and really starting to establish himself. He has over 30 sacks, but he's only 6'1". He's kind of one of these Doomervilles, James Harrison, get under your pad type guys. He can play the run well enough. I thought I don't know if he's a sleeper, but he's a guy I just wanted to bring up for this because I'm really impressed with him.
He's not going to be for everybody. 6'1",
yeah.
248. Teams are going to make him an off-ball linebacker. And actually, I want to talk a little bit here about a trade that just happened with Hassan Reddick. And Hassan Reddick went through this. Hassan Reddick was a dynamic edge rusher in college. And they're like, no, too small. You're playing off-ball backer. And that's not who he was. And then finally, after his first team screwed that up, even though they drafted him in the first round to do not what he does best, which is mind-boggling, he ends up being a great edge rusher. So Muhammad Kamara, does the team give him a shot to be a pure edge, or does he have to become an off-ball backer? That'll be the interesting one. Obviously length is going to be a problem for him in the NFL. Can that translate? But and if you're small, if you're 6'1" and an edge rusher, you better work out great, which he did. So
yeah. I mean, he's another one I think would be a 3-4 Steelers edge guy from 20 years ago. And real quick on Reddick, I mean, there's a couple teams, and your Niners are the poster boys for it, but certainly the Eagles and the Jets are in this category too, of just give me a ton of different defensive linemen. And I find it kind of interesting. Huff goes from one green team to the other, and Reddick goes the other way around. And they're kind of like the same guy,
Very similar players, but clearly willing to, pay different amounts of money for different ages and where the Jets are and where the Eagles are. Interesting that they came up with this swap, conditional 3rd-round pick to become a 2nd if Reddick plays, I believe it is 67.5% of the snaps for the Jets this year.
Far from a guarantee with the way they rotate and, you need some leads.
But so this is what the Jets are up to. Hassan Reddick, Tyron Smith, Mike Williams, Morgan Moses. They brought in Tyrod Taylor. They brought in Javon Kinlaw, Isaiah Oliver, a ton of veterans added to this already kind of veteran roster, and clearly just going for it and just praying to God that Aaron Rodgers' Achilles is okay and he's the same player that he was 2 years ago now, because that is everything. All those eggs. I mean, Easter just passed. All those Easter eggs are in one basket right now with the short term for the New York Jets.
They're going for it. And I get it. I mean, you got an older Hall of Fame quarterback. They're pushing all their chips in. They have not been a successful organization in some time, And if it all hits, and I mean, I forget who it was I was listening to. It might have been Mike Lombardi. He calls them the New York ifs. Like if this guy stays healthy, if this guy, they might win the whole thing. A
lot of ifs going on, and the Eagles, by the way, have to get some things right with the way last season ended. So new coordinators on both sides of the ball. They got Huff rushing the passer now, and not Hassan Reddick in Philadelphia. 2 very interesting teams with high hopes for the 2024 season. All right, let us know what you think about Matt Williamson's NFL Draft defensive line rankings at Williamson NFL, at BD Peacock on Twitter. Hit us up in the YouTube comments, and make sure you subscribe to the new YouTube channels for both Matt Williamson and Brian Peacock. OT with BP, overtime, some stuff that doesn't fit here on our Locked On Pods. New YouTube only channel that I have just launched, and you can find that youtube.com/@BD Peacock. You can find Williamson's channel, youtube.com/@Williamson NFL, just like our Twitter handles, and a lot more coverage for you. If you need more coverage, we've got it for you. And we'll be back tomorrow with a dueling mock draft.
Okay, I love it.
And Williamson, talk to you then.